Hi, everybody. Today, I am going to be going over with you Chapter 1, Study Reading. I know that I yesterday threw you right under the bus, told you to go and figure it out, try the study read all by yourself without any instruction, just the procedure packet. So today, I'm going to just walk you through my thinking as I am study reading a text. As I wrote in the web page where you found this video, I just want to do a disclaimer. A study read takes a lot of thinking. And if I was reading something that I had never read before, especially something that I didn't have a lot of background knowledge in, it would take me a lot longer to do a study read than what I'm going to model for you today, because I've read this chapter I don't even know how many times, so many times. So I know it pretty well. So I'm going to model how I thought about it the first time, but it will go fast. So I just want to tell you that because a lot of times people are like, oh my gosh, you made it look so easy. Yeah, well, I've read it 500 times, so it is easy for me. But I just want to acknowledge that it probably wasn't as easy for you because you had to struggle through it. So I'm going to again go to my camera and I'm going to turn on my document camera so we can do this together. There we go. And here are my materials. I have my textbook, but I don't want to write in my textbook because then I will have writing in my textbook. So then my next class, I would have a bad textbook. So I'm not going to write in my textbook. Instead, I went through and made a copy of Chapter 1. So that is what this is, Chapter 1. And so this is page 11. And remember, yesterday I went through, we're doing page 11 all the way through page 31. And this is, of course, going to be black and white because I just copied it. That's all right. You'll get the gist, right? The first thing I need to do is I need to look in my procedure packet and I need to find the procedure for doing the study read. So here we are, and yesterday I did some highlighting, and you're going to hear my family in the background because they're loud. Sorry about that. But okay, so I've highlighted, and step 1 was to preview the text and write a prediction. So that's the first thing I'm going to do because I'm going to follow my procedure. All right, and I'm going to use a pen because then you'll be able to see it a little bit better than my pencil. Usually I only use pencil. That's it. But well, maybe I'll go use pencil. I hope if you can't see it, I'll switch. But I do. I always use pencil because I can erase, and I always make a mistake. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to page through here. Okay. The first thing that I'm noticing is types. There's types of context clues. And then there's this numbered list. Examples, synonyms, antonyms, the general sense of the sentence. And I'm noticing that there is this number 1 and this number 1, and it's examples. So I'm already formulating in my head that the author is organizing this text by numbering the different kinds of context clues. And I'm going to predict that the next section might be synonyms with a number 2 by it. All right. I love the cartoons, so I always have to read those. It says the only adverse side effect of this prescription is that it will drain your bank account. So that's kind of funny. Side effect of a prescription usually doesn't have anything to do with money, so we can assume that it means that it's going to be bad for the bank account there. All right. This is that practice thing that I told you about. Oh, yep, look, I was right. Number 2, synonyms. And here's another cartoon. According to the box, this cereal is a panacea. It will cure everything that's wrong with your life. So it means it makes everything good. cures everything, right? All right, here's some practice again. Oh, and look, number 3, antonyms. I was correct. And now I'm sure that this happened in this and the synonyms too, but I didn't see it. Antonym is bolded, and so I'm going to assume that the definition is going to be right there, a word or phrase that means the opposite of another word. Yep. So I'm going to be having to look out for those bolded words as well. Oh, here's another. Indolent? I'm not being indolent. Trying to find something good to watch on TV while eating these chips is really hard work. So indolent must mean lazy or something. I don't know. Let's see. Yep. All right, here's another practicey thing. Lots of practices. Here's 4, general sense of the sentence. All right, this may not be an opportune time to tell you this, Cranston, but you're fired. That means, opportune means it's a good thing, so it's not the good thing, right? Good time to tell you when you're in the hospital. Probably not. All right, more of this. Important note about textbook definitions. All right, I'm going to have to think about definition. Boldface type, vertical mobility. That's going to be talking about definition. So I have that in my head. And then the chapter review. To save time while reading, you should try and figure out the meanings of unfamiliar words. You can do so by looking at their context, the words surrounding them. There are 4 kinds, examples, synonyms, antonyms, general sense of the sentence, and then we're talking about text features of italicized words or boldface words, and then maybe they define it for us. All right, so that took a little bit of time, but not too long. And this tells me that I think this chapter is about how readers can figure out unknown words by using the words around them, the context. Okay. So that's what I think it's about. It's about how to use the context to figure out unknown words. All right. So now if I were going to do the next thing on our list is read and annotate. And I remember telling you yesterday that we're just going to be looking at the basics here, annotating for meaning. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to think about conclusions, any connections that I have. Okay, cool. So the first thing I would do is I would read this page, because this page right here is all content. I am not going to sit here and read in front of you, because boring is probably boring enough to watch me picture walk through and window shop through. Okay, so I would read all of this because this is all content. All right, and this is all content. I would read all of that. I like to box things, and so I think this is really important. These tell me there are 4 types of context clues, and so I would probably box that as well. 4 common types of context clues: examples, synonyms, antonyms, and general sense of the passage or sentence, right? So I'm going to star this, and I might put 4 types right here of context clues. And I know it says types of context clues here, and it's in that big, bold print, so I'm looking at those text features, but me writing down something in the margins helps me remember, because whenever you write things down, it helps you remember. And it also, my eye will be drawn to my own writing even more than the text features when I come back to this. So 4 types of context clues. And here's the first one, examples. And I would read this and I would read this because this whole page is content. This is important. I would be reading all of it, okay? And then I'm noticing again that when I was picture walking, I noticed that there was bold words, and I'm going to pay attention to those bold words because they give us the definition. And I would probably pull the definition out into the margin just so I don't have to read through. So if you are given examples that relate to an unknown word, you can often figure out its meaning. So examples relate to an unknown word. So I'm going to pull that out, and there's my annotations for that page. And then I'm going to go on to the next page. I would definitely do my check for understanding. I would read the cartoon. I would definitely do that because this is all content still. And then I would read through the explanation. And then there's this practice. And I'm just going to say that I did pretty good on the check for understanding here. I got them all right. I feel pretty good about how to use examples to figure out unknown words. So I'm just going to not do this practice because it's not assigned. I don't have to do it. The only reason it's there is if I am having trouble. And so then I would practice and figure it out, and I'd look up the words in the back of the book. But since I already understand it pretty well, I'm going to skip it. I'm going to skip this page too because this is all practice. So I'm just not going to do it. And now we have our second thing, synonyms. And I would read all of this. This is all content. So I would read it. But again, here is our boldface word, synonym, and then I'm going to look to see right after it to see if it is a definition. And it says one or more words that mean the same or almost the same as the unknown word. So there's the definition right there. Words that mean the same as the unknown word. Okay? So synonym, definition. All right? Then I would read all of this. I would do my check for understanding, and I know how to do. I absolutely know how to do synonyms too. They're easy for me, so I don't have to do any of the practice because I understand it already. Okay. If I was a little iffy, maybe I'd do a couple and just to make sure, but easy. Okay, so I'm skipping that. All right, so antonyms, there's our third one. And again, here is the bold-faced word, and it says a word or a phrase that means the opposite of another word and is also a useful context clues. So here's where I made a mistake. I don't need to have that underlined because duh, it is a context clue, right? We already know that. It's already been there. So antonym, definition, a word that means the opposite of an unknown word. Okay, so there we go. I would definitely read the comic because I like it, and this is all content here. So I would read that. I would do the check for understanding. And I'm going to skip the practice because I get antonyms too. They're easy for me. Okay. So there's that. I'm going to do that. And then general sense of the passage. So here's our last one because it's number 4. And then I don't see any bold-faced words, right? So I'm going to have to read this a little bit carefully. The context of a new word contains no examples, no synonyms, or antonyms. Oh dear. In such cases, you must do a bit more detective work. You'll need to look at any clues provided in the information surrounding the word. Asking yourself questions about the passage may help you make a fairly accurate guess about the meaning of the unfamiliar word. So now I'm going to have to make this up, right? Because it doesn't tell me. So there's no real definition. So I'm going to put this in my own words. Making a logical guess using the context of the sentence to figure out the meaning of an unknown word. Okay? So I have that written down, and I would read all of this because it's all content. It's all important. It's all information the author is giving me. And then I would do the check for understanding. And this one's a little bit trickier. So I might have to go through and do a little bit of work on this one because this is a little bit tricky to figure out the unknown word without a specific context clue. You just have to use the general sense of the sentence. So you have to do a little bit of guessing. So I think this is the one, if I was going to have trouble with any of these, this is the one I would have trouble with. And I probably would have tried some of these practice questions so I could make sure that I understood what that meant. Okay. And then I would read this. And this talks about definitions. Okay. And it says textbook authors often do more than provide a context clue. They set off their definitions in italics or boldface type as above when they take the time to define and illustrate a word. All right, and it says you should assume that material is important enough to learn. Very true, right? Well, I'm just going to tell you right now as I read this, if authors are giving me the definition, well, then I think that I'm using that definition, which is in the text, as a clue to what the word means. So I think that definitions are another context clue. So now there are 5, right? Because if it's in the text, then it's a context clue. And when you get into 960, definitions are counted as context clues. So we're going to count them as context clues right here too. Even if John Langan doesn't, we're gonna. So now we have 5 context clues that we have learned about. We've learned about examples, we've learned about synonyms, we've learned about antonyms, we've learned about general sense of the sentence, and now we've learned about definitions as well. Okay? All right. I always want to go through and read the chapter review because the chapter review is really important. So this is content that I would read. And now I am done with my during reading. I've gone through, I've done my basics of annotation. I've read the whole thing, even though I didn't read in front of you. I did that. So now we're on to step number 3, which is to outline. And I noticed that there's a rigid format here where this is our thesis statement that is Roman numeral 1. You start with an A with major details, and then you explain those major details with minor details, which are indented. So the indentation is important, it looks like, right? So I'm going to do that. And I think I have a blank sheet of paper at the bottom here. Hold on. I think I do. I do. All right. So the first thing, I would do this on a typewriter, like I would, not a typewriter, but on my computer, because that's just easier. When you make a mistake, you can delete. But for this lesson, I am going to just write it. So I always have a title, right? So I'm going to write Study Read, Chapter 1, Vocabulary in Context. It is really important to include a title because then it centers your reader, who is me, what you're talking about. Okay, so always do that. And of course, your name is up here, so I know whose paper it is. And now I need to decide how to begin my outline. So I'm going to look here, and it says Roman numeral 1, author's thesis statement or main idea. So I know I'm going to start with a Roman numeral 1, and I know I'm not going to indent that. So my Roman numeral 1 is going to be right there. And now I have to think about, oh dear, what is the thesis statement, and how do I figure that out? Well, good thing we have our handy dandy procedure packet right here, because in the procedure packet, back here a little bit, there's a whole section on composing a thesis statement. So I could go back and look at this, and I could try and figure it out, which is something I hope that some of you did yesterday. So answer the following questions. What is this text about? So what is this text about? Well, it's about context clues, right? So I'm going to this book is about context clues. That's going to be my topic, context clues. All right, right? And it says that right here. It says, this is the topic. It's a single word or phrase. Yep, okay. What's the most important thing the author wants us to know about the topic? What's the most important thing? I think the most important thing is he wants us to know all of the different context clues, right? So, so the controlling idea is that there are 5, right? And he says 4, but we all know that a definition is a context clue. So there are 5, right? There are 5 different ones. So now I have the controlling idea, and I have the topic. And then it says compose a statement that contains both of these components. Make sure you give the text and the author credit in your thesis. Check to make sure your thesis is a complete sentence. After composing the thesis, check to see if your thesis, main idea, is stated in the text. If so, you should be sure to quote the stated thesis for your outline or summary. Okay. All right. So we have the topic and we have the controlling idea, and now I need to compose a sentence using these 2 components. So basically we're doing a little bit of a math problem. Topic plus controlling idea equals thesis statement. So I'm going to start with the word there because it said I have to make it a complete sentence. So we need a subject and a predicate, right? So I'm going to start by saying there are 5 context clues that readers use to figure out unknown words, right? Because that's what context clues are for, is so that you are figuring out unknown words, right? And the important thing is there are 5 of them. So I think that's a pretty good sentence. That kind of, in a nutshell, is what the whole chapter is about. Okay. So then it says, make sure to give the text and author credit. Okay, so I'm going to have to revise this a little bit. And I'm going to put in the book 10 steps. I'll have to look because it's so long. 10 steps to advancing college reading. Excuse me. Skills by, sorry, I'm not going to put the word by because then that messes up my sentence. Because if I wrote in the book 10 Steps to Advancing College Reading Skills by John Langan, then I have to like put in other words like it states that, Instead, I want to say that John Langan states that. So I'm going to just put a comma there and put John Langan. I need a verb. In the book 10 Steps to Advancing College Reading Skills, John Langan presents us, readers with 5 context clues that can be used to figure out unknown words. Okay, and now I have to underline the book. If I was typing, I would italicize that. But since I'm not typing, I have to underline it because this is a book. And then I'm going to look. It said, if it says that, then we have to use it. There are 4 common types of context clues. Well, but there are 5. So he doesn't state that thesis. So I think that here is our thesis right here. And we went through and we were sure to make sure the text and the author were given credit. We checked to make sure that our thesis was a complete sentence. It is. And we checked to see if our thesis was stated, and it isn't. So I think that we're good. We're good. All right. So for our Roman numeral 1, we're going to write that thesis, right? In the book. And see, it's better when you're on a computer because you can just copy paste and, whatever. But I can't, so I have to do it. 10 steps to advancing college reading skills. John Langan presents readers with 5 context clues that can be used to figure out unknown words. Okay, so there's our thesis statement. And now we need to figure out what's next. We have our thesis done, right? So here's our step 3 again. A is major details. Okay, so we're going to do major details. And so the thing that I am thinking is, well, what are the major details? I think that there are 5 context clues, and those must be our major details, right? That supports our thesis of saying that there are 5 context clues. So I am going to indent, because this is not indented, but I'm going to indent and put my capital A there. And one of them was examples. And I'm going to make sure my B is lined up with my A, because these are the same, right? These have the same meaning. All 5 different context clues have the same weight in this text. So examples, synonyms, antonyms, general sense, and definitions. Okay, so I have 5 things. Now, it also says that if you had minor details, you'd put it here. Now, you can choose to do 2 different things here. And this is why students get mad at me, because they want a right answer and a wrong answer. And there's just not a right answer and a wrong answer. If you want to define examples in a minor detail, you can do that. Here's my number 1. I would look back over here and I would find my examples, and it would be like, okay, words that relate to an unknown word. And notice I'm lining this up. I'm not going all the way back here. It has to line up into an unknown word that helps you figure out the meaning. Okay, and that's just fine. It has the hierarchy, right? We have our thesis statement, which it carries the most weight. That is what the whole text is about. We have our major details. They carry the next amount of weight, and they've been indented 1 time. And then we have the minor detail here that has been indented twice, because it carries the least amount of weight, right? So you can do it this way, or you could just put a dash or a colon and explain it here as well. Either way works. Either way works. Now, for our purposes today, since I started it this way, I am going to use a minor detail to define each of these things. So a synonym, and I'm just going to start over. We have to do 1 again, because if there were more examples, more minor details for examples, then I would do 2 or 3 or 4, right? But there was only 1 definition, and that's all I'm going to put on my outline, because that's the important thing. So I'm going to just do number 1, and then under synonyms, you have to start over. So that's number 1 again, and this is words that mean the same thing as the unknown word. Right? And then I'm going to keep going. So I have one here for antonym. Words that mean the opposite of the unknown word. Okay? And then general sense of the sentence, using words surrounding the unknown word to make a logical guess at, is at a good word? To make a logical guess at, I guess, the definition. Or I'm going to put the meaning, because we're not trying to like guess what the dictionary says. We're just trying to get the meaning out of that. So to guess at the meaning of an unknown word. And I ran out of space, so I'm just going to stop there. And then definitions. Authors include the definition of the unknown word in the sentence. Okay, so there. Now we have our outline all done. And you can see that there's definitely a hierarchy. Anything more to the left means the most, it has the most weight. So here is the thesis statement. And I didn't have to write thesis statement here, just Roman numeral 1, because I know that Roman numeral 1 means that's the thesis, okay? So Roman numeral 1, here's my thesis. It sticks out on the left the most. Then my major details all line up, and they are they have only been indented one time. They hold the next, have the next amount of weight. They all have the same weight, and they're one step below the thesis statement. So here's examples, synonyms, antonyms, general sense of the sentence, and definitions. And there they all are. And then my minor details all line up, right? And they're all starting with number 1 because there's only one definition. And there they are. Okay, so there is my lovely outline. The next thing you had to do, and oh, I forgot to do this. I should have had outline right here. Just like that. And then I would do summary down here. Now our summary, here we are, step 4, summary. I would have had to have looked at this and gone over all of the rules. And the first rule is that the thesis statement is the main idea is the first sentence. So I already know what I'm going to write first. I'm going to copy my thesis statement that I've already composed, and I'm going to copy that as my first sentence, because that's what it says right here, that the thesis statement is the main idea, is the first sentence. So done. Major details are included. All of them. It looks like all major details are included. Okay, so great. I'm going to include that there are examples, synonyms, antonyms, general sense of the sentence, and definitions. I'm going to include that in my summary. All of those need to be there, okay? Now it says only include the minor details if they explain a major detail that you don't understand well, or that you deem to be vitally important to that part of the text. All right, so I'm thinking that for this text, I could do 2 different things. I could make, this is a choice that I would have to make as a learner. If I was only going to include things, minor details that I needed to include because I didn't understand them, I would only be including the general sense of the sentence, because that is the one that's the most confusing to me. I understand examples, I understand synonyms, I understand antonyms, I understand what a definition is, okay? The general sense is a little iffy, so I would include that. However, and if you did that and you just mentioned the rest, that's fine. However, I do think that John Langan's point was to explain each of these things. He thinks they're really important. So it might be better to include a blurb of what that means. So I might, for this particular summary, include those definitions in there. Okay? But I also have to make it a paragraph, right? Where does it say paragraph? Must be in paragraph form. Okay? That's part of our thing here. It must be in paragraph form. So I'm going to have to do some reworking with my words on there. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to just be like, in the book 10 Steps to Advancing College Reading Skills, John Langan presents readers with 5 context clues that can be used to figure out unknown words. Examples are words that relate to unknown words that help you figure out the meaning. Synonyms are words that mean the same thing. Do you see what is going on here? I am just retyping this in a paragraph. So instead, I would have to do a little bit more work as a writer to make it a good paragraph. But I think I would include all of that information. I'm not going to write a summary with you today. I'm just not, because we've been on this video for long enough, and I will go over that later. So I think that the outline gives you a little bit of knowledge to how to do your summary, because this gives you all the information for your summary. All of it is right here. So then you have to go through those steps, those rules, the 5 rules. You have to make sure you don't have any of your opinions in there. You need to make sure that you're paraphrasing, so you're not using the same words that the author used. You're paraphrasing them into your own words. And you need to make sure that it's in a paragraph. So I'm going to let you struggle with that a little bit. I think that's not as big of a struggle as it is to figure out outlining, which is why I took the time to do that with you today. So that is how I looked at chapter 1, and that is how I outlined it. And I would, if this was something that I didn't know as well, I would have been paging through and looking for those definitions. I would have been like, oh, here's examples. And I think I did peek at how to word that. I would have looked back and I would have found synonyms, and I would have looked at that definition in order to complete my outline. So I hope that this has been helpful. And I hope that you took really good notes on your own assignments, because that's what you should have been doing this whole time. You should have been revising your study read that you turned in today. And now your job is going to be, if you printed it out and did your annotating and your revising with a pencil or a pen, then you need to scan that sheet, scan that assignment again, and I want to see your original work and your revisions, and you're going to scan that and put it in the assignment folder on D2L. And if you were doing it online digitally and you were typing in and revising, that's fine, but like I said, I want to see your original work as well as your revisions. So I'm going to stop sharing the document camera. There we go. Hello. All right. So this was pretty in depth. I hope that it was helpful. I hope that you saw places where you were like, oh, I get it now. This is not the end of learning how to outline at all. Not even close. but I'll probably post this video again when we go over outlining, because it is hard. It is hard, and it takes a lot of thinking. So it's good to practice, right? I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in the next presentation.